Ryan, I hear everybody bellow out. I don't understand what challenges is. I don't get how it all works. I don't understand what these teams are playing for. They're playing for seeding. Didn't Immortals win it? A lot of common questions that I've been getting recently on stuff like HitScan. So in this video, I wanted to do a recap of Europe, especially. Maybe we have time for North America, we'll see. But first, I kind of wanted to talk through how all of this works, because this is useless, right? This doesn't tell you anything about what these teams are playing for. So I actually wanted to show off something that a friend of mine, Zandy, made. She is the coach for, not the coach, the general manager for Wave Esports. And this is probably the best example I could give on how to explain it. And it's really good because it allows us to go, we are here. For Europe, we are here currently. We're in the qualifier 1, and the top 8 teams will go to Challengers Week 2, which is being played from tomorrow onwards. This weekend is going to be deciding the top 4. How they do that, I'm not quite sure yet. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But I need to be explicitly clear that we're still in this stage of Europe. In North America, we're here. Today, we decide which are going to be these top 4 teams of Challengers Week 1. But it is also important to highlight what these teams are actually playing for. And this is where it gets a little bit confusing and maybe a bit frustrating too, because these teams are playing for a place in the next week of Challengers games. The top 4 don't go to the Regional Masters, they go to this one, which I guess is frustrating in a sense because, you know, you're playing to play in another qualifier. But I imagine that the seeding that these teams get is going to be a huge help. They get a bit of a head start potentially in some of these events to have that advantage, and they should do that. But also for these events, they're playing for money. At least they are in North America. I'm not sure on the prize pool for Europe. I'll put it in the comments or description once I found out, because I'm not quite sure yet. But yeah, for Europe, we're in this position, and we are today going to be deciding our top 8 teams that are going to make it to the official Challengers Week 1. Like I said, with North America, we are here currently. We're down to 6 teams now, with Sentinels, Xset, Luminosity Gaming, Envy, Immortals, and Genji all still playing to be top 4 to then go into Challengers Week 2. And then when we get to 2 and 3, Challengers Week 2 and Challengers Week 3, the top 4 of that event and the top 4 of this event will make it to the Regional Masters. This is where it's confused a lot of people, because generally, Masters was meant to be an international event, where certain teams, you know, there'd be 4 teams from Europe, 4 teams from North America, 2 from Latin America, those kind of areas. But because of COVID and the pandemic, we can't do that. So this whole event is effectively a second strike, is how I'd describe it, right? So I imagine all of this will be done out of the Europe studio again, for example. But yeah, hopefully that clears it up. I'll link this in the description if you want to have a gander, but this is the best way. Even the videos I think Riot have put out explaining the format have made it even more confusing. So I wanted to start with talking about this, and now I want to actually talk about this whole event. And really, we need to sort of ditch this, in all honesty. This is the main bracket, but it doesn't really give you much help. And for those that don't use the likes of VLR.gg or the Spike, you should. Even though this seems like a lot of information to go through, we're going to flicker through it all and kind of talk about what should be happening. Because this was the main qualifier, we're now in the qualifier playoffs, and this is deciding effectively who are going to be the top 8 teams to go to the main Challengers event. But of course, websites like this, VLR, GG, Spike, Liquipedia, don't quite know how this main event is going to work, because the other problem with Challengers is the format is different in every country. We have double elimination in North America, we have group stages in Korea. I think it's just single elim in Europe, and we can talk about that a little bit as we go on. But yeah, so this is currently where we're at the moment with the open qualifier. If we go to the actual bracket down here, you can see pretty much what we just saw in the VLR page. But then you go over to the main event, you can see that it's looking again to just be a single elimination round of 8. So I think that's important to highlight. But now that we've got all of these teams, let's actually break down the main results and the main stuff that I certainly wanted to talk about, because again, there's a lot of information to take in here, and not an awful lot of it is useful. Not only have you got like this to deal with, but you've also just got like, obviously, you know, this is Fnatic, but it took me a while to find Monkey Business because they're down as MB, for example, and they could be down as OG potentially at this point, according to rumors, right? So really, we're going to be going through this event and talking about each of the brackets, because there's been some really interesting surprises along the way. When we come to bracket 1, I guess we'll call it, with Wave Esports and CGN, because these teams will have to play each other at some point. Wave Esports had a pretty good run at this area. They beat Enterprise, which is a really good result. Enterprise are a pretty good team, but honestly, we don't see an awful lot of them. CGN, good showing from them to sort of beat teams that they should be beating. Torrent Mill could be an interesting one. No Namers, literally never heard of them. I don't think that they are a lineup that I might know of. Not really. They're not really known from other games, but they beat Quick Math, who are, again, a team near enough around. The main result, I suppose, is Defuse losing to S2V. And S2V is a Portuguese squad. I haven't seen much of them. I think they've been playing in like the LVP events, but this is a really tough loss for Defuse. I didn't realize it was this close because Defuse, they're a team that should be proving that they are consistently tier 2, maybe even tier 1, because they're really good at going through open qualifiers best of ones, but clearly not, as the first loss comes in an overtime split game against these guys who do qualify. So it's a really good result from them. From speaking to coaches and stuff, they've said that this team has improved, so definitely keep an eye on them. But this is the first upset, and there's plenty more, don't get me wrong. With this, there's not too much to talk about. Maybe you want to see more Visu, but not quite happened. Summon, Fnatic, I love saying that now, managed to make their way through easily, but the problem is so did Giants, and these guys can face off very soon. And I actually didn't realize that Soldaz was still playing as a squad. Well, I mean, it's a very different squad to what they had before. It's not the Project SW team, but interesting to know. IPTH also qualified through, straightforward stuff. G2, straightforward stuff. Riggs GG, straightforward stuff. This is all like standard, really. Everybody that should have qualified did qualify. I guess we get to a point when we get to HSD, which should be around here somewhere. They might not be... They ran into 19 esports. Here they are. So they qualified through their games and they came up against 19 esports, which you might be like, who are they? It's the old Vodafone Giants team. It's Jomba, Fatino, Donkey, these players. Vasily, not quite Vansily, but that's a pretty dominant win on a straightforward map like Ascent. So HSD, the rumor was that they were going to North. North imploded today, unfortunately. So kind of more bad news on top of bad news for them, but I still think when it comes to a Nordic team looking for a team like this, they're an easy pickup, I think. They're very young, they just need a bit more time, and they can flourish into a really good team, such as, Nip went through straightforwardly. I was keeping an eye on Nerdtown Esports because they're pretty good, but they lost to Winfinity. A team, again, I'm not really sure on. Again, this is all pretty decent stuff. Raise Your Edge had a really good debut. This is CNED's new team with Starkso, called Mentor. It's a weird roster. You've obviously got CNED as a star player, but Bone Cold I've never heard of, Kyle's I've never heard of, so I'm excited to see these guys, and we get to see these guys on stream. They're playing FPX today, so I'm really excited to watch that, but I think I'm recording Press 4 to Defuse at the same time, which is a bit of an annoying one more than anything. To carry on, Linstatue is still playing. Unfortunately, Fisher isn't part of that roster anymore. He was one of my favourite players to watch during First Right, but FPX breezed this game. Linstatue, by the way, is players like Tweenie, Loki. Laura's on this team now, actually not playing Sage anymore, which is interesting, considering that she can be good. Alliance had Honk in their first game, and Honk is Strong's team. If you've been on the channel, you've seen his videos where he's talking mad smack about everybody. It's a really good roster. You've got a lot of underrated players, a lot of players that have just been sort of left behind, it feels. You got Destrian, Dreamass from Exile. Him and Entralas were the only players that weren't picked up. Mikey Boy was from Meow Mud with Taimu. Trex was from Singularity and he got dropped. And Shumpy was from Finest and he got dropped. But that's still a really good debut for Alliance. Like, that's a tough first game to ever have for both teams at this level. And really, any of these teams, if they were in different brackets, could qualify. You got Inside Games, which I think is Jesse on their roster still, or are they still running what they were running before? No, it's just Shouty and Mystic that I remember, but anyway, they qualify. Sampy, they're good. They keep going. This is Need More DM. They beat Cremrail Batiste, who are another pretty decent team in that region. Idex's team, I really like Idex. I think he's a swell guy. Team Liquid, they qualify. Sparks Esports, 2G4L, they don't. Yasta comes through, a team that, again, I don't really know too much about. Just sort of breezing through this because then we actually get to today's results. Team Vitality, straightforward, they qualify. Big don't against Playzone. and plays on. I've checked these guys before. Relative no names. Got B again, bottom fragging for his team. He's just more inconsistent than anything. But I like the addition of Obnox. I think this team is just going to take time. But you're always going to keep an eye on how Godby plays, because stats in game aren't good. They don't need to be great when you're in IGL, but when you're playing the Silver, you kind of have to up the performance a little bit. Asuba without twisting really can't get anything going. I like Bobby's. I think he's a really good breach player, but and Mazzarini is like sub to me and stuff on Twitch, so it's funny, but these guys are sort of struggling at the moment. Rough times, Monkey Business. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Heretics lost to Entropic, and this is the new Entropic roster with Taimu, Twiston, as I mentioned, from Asuba, Vladidi, Apo from... Apo was from... He was from Auglis, wasn't he? He was from the Prodigy team. Am I mixing it up, or did he play for L'Institut? Oh yeah, he played for that Cave Cannon team for a little bit. What did they play? Did he? He did play in First Strike. I'm not being silly. Yeah, he played for L'Institut. He wasn't that standout of a player. He was fine, but I think this is a really good team for him. Hip is, back playing Valorant. I think considering Lucker and Farof got a second chance, I think it was only fair that Hip got an opportunity to show his strength again. But they beat Heretics. That's a really tough loss, though. No really unstandout player. Nisau's missing. Let's not get into that, but I think there's a lot of potential PR disasters that could happen to Heretics if they're not careful, and they don't get a hold on the narrative of stuff happening at the moment around Nisau, because it doesn't look good, especially with what Artist tweeted, which he shouldn't have tweeted, let's be fair. But yeah, carrying on, they actually get beat by Monkey Business, which is that OG team, all aim no brain, AKM quote, of course. But this is a really good result for Monkey Business. Would they have beaten Heretics? Maybe not. But clearly this is going to be a problem again. Like, Twiston is always almost 30 bomb, and he's like Scream levels of individual performance. But it depends on the rest of the team. I just think more than anything, Vladidi struggled. Like, 80 ADR is pretty rubbish, and 4 first deaths. 10-1, that's crazy. Twiston is insane. I'd love to watch this, but there's no VODs. So yeah, we have all of this stuff sort of going on. So I'm actually really excited to see Monkey Business. The rumor is that OG aren't picking them up anymore, but I hope that they do, because I don't think that the performance at Red Bull necessarily showed them dividends. It was just a bad day for them, and with all of the negative press that they had, that's going to happen. But Guild Esports go through. Movie Star Writers beat 6'4", Fully Tatted, which is some members from the old Purple Cobra squad. VZ, Fast Handy, that was on Need More DM. I'm pretty sure that I think it was on this roster too, but never mind. We're carrying on. B7 Warriors go through. So this is like a recap of everything that's happened. No real surprise results other than, I guess, Honk not qualifying, but they did run into Alliance first thing, so that's a bad time. But now we get into the actual main events of who's playing who, because we know that we're seeing Razor Edge versus Fun Plus Phoenix later on. But what about all of these other games? How are they looking to go? Well, there's 4 teams here, and there's 1 qualifying spot to go to the main event. Really, this should be Wave taking this section of the map, the section of the bracket. CGN are a good team. Lunaris proved me wrong. I know Sebi's been in like the comments and stuff and saying like, just you wait. And I'm seeing a lot of good stuff, to be fair. But Wave should be winning this one. The quality of their team should be consistent to the point that they're qualifying in an event where there's no other big teams. CGN, I think, is just tier 2. Wave Esports is cemented in there. So this is going to be a tough game. It is a best of 3, so there's always that. And then you could kind of go from there. STV, you've got to be careful for. They obviously surprised by beating Defuse, who I think was the strongest team this side of the bracket. And so you got to keep an eye on them, because they could certainly qualify. The issue is with the seeding in this tournament is stuff like this happens. There's no real strong team in this. And then you go to the second bit of the bracket, you've got Fanatics potentially playing Giants. I think Fnatic should take this. Giants, I really like their new roster. I really like players like Pipson, but Giants Gaming have kind of struggled, I think, sort of get into some form. We can look at previous results and stuff in a second, but you're sort of winning games. They lose to Riot Gaming and Force in a best of 1. They lose to G2 Esports in First Strike, so you can't really give them too much. There was just a lot of weird results from them. I think it was them that lost to... It wasn't them that lost to B7 Warriors. That was Vitality. But But yeah, sort of this recent result was not a good look for them, but they were best of ones, and they are a very new team. But this is the Prodigy stack with Meadow, so there should be a really interesting matchup happening here. But they obviously need to beat Ipon, who have Tigane in their roster now. I didn't know that. That's interesting. So yeah, this is a good game. I wish we could sort of watch it. I hope that that's the second game that gets played. Where are we? Here we are. I hope that's the second game that gets played, and we can kind of go from there. I realize that this video is getting a bit long, so let's just blast through the rest of EU. So Fnatic Giants, really good game, could go either way, but you're looking at Fnatic to win this out. Summon just looked like a much better all-round team, much more experience and practice, whereas Giants is still a new roster. G2 versus Rix is a really good game. I don't think Rix are going to take it, but if they can take a map, that's progress. Because I think that this Rix GG team with RCK, Fry, Otom, we had some really good stuff coming out of them recently, but this just might be a step beyond what they're capable of at the moment. But I really like this Rix GG roster. I think they're going to do a lot of good, but this might be a bit of a tall order. This is straightforward. G2 should be qualifying here. Fnatic should be qualifying here. Wave should be qualifying there. Here is an interesting one. Nip has to go up against the old Vodafone Giants, and really the question with this Nip team is how they do against worse teams. Because they did lose to Purple Cobras in first strike. Not a good look. We didn't see that game again because it was a best of one. But you would imagine that Nip, with the addition of Jadi with Existence, should be able to beat out some of these other teams that are much below them. Winfinity did well in their group. They beat HSD, which is a challenging team, don't get me wrong. But if Nip want to show that they are actually a tier 1 team with this lineup, they need to not only beat Winfinity, but also this 19 esports. I think this ex-Vodafone Giants team is out for blood, and I think that they are still pretty good when it comes to how they play. We get to see this game happen with Razor Edge versus FPX. FPX should be winning this bracket, but you've got Inside Games, which are good, and Alliance, which have performed much better than most people may have anticipated. So Alliance versus FPX would be an interesting game here. I wonder if Mitch is going to be casting it. I'd imagine not, because that feels a bit like a conflict of interest, and I don't want to watch a cast where somebody's obviously biased, but hey-ho, that's just me. Moving on to here, so this should be FPX. This should be Team Liquid. Team Liquid versus Heat should be a good game. I'm really excited to see this old Need More DM team play again, especially with Dead Fox. I think that's a really good pickup. So that should be a good one. Should be the operative word. But Team Liquid must qualify, I think. Vitality, I do believe that they have a pretty soft bracket. You've got Monkey Business, OG in here too. But are they good enough to take on Team Vitality? I don't think so. But I'm a Team Vitality stan all the way. I do think that this team with Sender, with Vac, this whole lineup, pound for pound, just slaps. And Monkey Business, I think the result against Entropic is good. It would be cool to see a really close series between them, but we'll have to see on that front. And then Guild Esports, the biggest question mark, I think, out of all of the top teams that we've highlighted, like Team Liquid, Vitality, Guild, I can see them tripping up to a Movie Star or a B7 Warriors. I don't think they played very well in their series against Team Liquid and Red Bull. I think there's a lot of pressure on Yassine to make plays, and I think Safe being on the Killjoy, the Sentinel role is a huge waste. It's like putting Sick from Sentinels onto that role. I just don't think that it really is a good look that they can be going forwards in the future. But we're coming up to 20 minutes now, so that is my predictions. Wave Esports, Fnatic, G2 Esports, Ninjas in Pajamas, FPX, Team Liquid, Team Vitality, Guild Esports. I don't reckon there's going to be any form of upsets. Of course there's going to be. I'm going to be wrong in some of these areas. But considering the caliber of teams that are in here and how the bracket sort of moved its way around, these tier 1 teams should be winning their games. If they don't, if G2 lose, if FPX lose, that is a big stain on their chances, I think, going forward. But then again, they do have the opportunity to go for the second qualifiers and do this. Like Heretics are going to have to do this, for example. But these are the top 8 teams. The last thing that I wanted to mention is it looks like as we get to the main event, we knock it down to 8 teams. Like I mentioned with, I need to close this because I keep opening it. Like I mentioned with this, top 8 teams, as we've just gone over with my predictions, would be brought down to top 4 teams, and then they move to week 2. From the looks of it, and I'm assuming this too, considering this was the same for First Strike, these top 8 teams, so these ones that qualify here, would have to play each other in a round of 8, and then whoever wins that qualifies. So I'll be quick with this. It basically means that if Wave Esports win this game and Fnatic win this game, these two are going to play each other for a place in that in the second qualifiers, right? So if that's the case, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but Fnatic should be beating Wave. G2 Esports, NIP, a rematch. Still think G2 Esports, to be honest. It depends on the map pool. Team Liquid versus FPX, that'd be a hell of a match. I hope more of these games are streamed. And then finally, you'd have Team Vitality versus potentially Guild, which, again, cracking games. The caliber of teams in Europe is stacked right now, but I hope that you enjoyed this video. I don't often do free-flowing stuff like this, to be honest. I've just effectively talked for 20 minutes straight. It's good practice for me, though, to do sort of analyst desk stuff. I realized as we're doing it, I keep saying, I think they should need to find new ways to say these kind of things, but that's kind of how the lay of the land is going. I hope that you appreciated the explanation. This was really good from Zandy, so shout out to her. And it's been updated all of the time because the rules are being updated all of the time. But we can get onto all of this. But I'm really excited for this main event, which is this weekend. It's Saturday, Sunday, I believe. And then we decide a top 4. And there should be some prize pool money for the winner of that too. We got NA at the same time as well. Speaking of which, there is going to be a watch party on HitScan for those sub to both channels, and in which case, you know, hang out with me. I had a lot of people asking me what my favorite skins are consistently, so it would be nice to talk a bit more esports. To be fair, actually, on that subject, a lot of people were kind of like, who's your favorite team, who's your favorite player, but various people asked me that question throughout the 5 hours of streaming, so I'm just going to change my answer every single time now just to change it up, but I'm going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown and understand a little bit more about how challenges is going to work. But that's just a recap of day 1 in Europe, and I'll let you know how day 2 goes later on. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.